Hi, everybody. I'm Virginia Amos, and welcome to my show where every week I get to talk to the people, the businesses, and the organizations that make Alexandria such a great place to live. Now, before I introduce my guest tonight, I just want to tell you we have a little bit of a format change. So, whereas you would normally
People, the businesses, and the
see this
organizations
on
that make Alexandria such a
Facebook,
great place to live. Now, before I
I need
introduce
you
my
to go
guest tonight,
to
I just want to tell
the
you we have a little
ZTV
bit of a
channel
format change.
and then
So,
click
whereas you
on
would
there, and that will
normally
take you to
people,
YouTube
businesses
where
see
we're actually
this on Make
broadcasting.
Alexandria
And
such a
you
great
can
place to
leave
live.
your
Now,
comments
before I
on
introduce my
YouTube
guest tonight,
just like you
I
would
just want
have
to tell you
on
ZTV
Facebook.
channel format change.
It's
And
a little bit
then
different, but we
we're
need to give this a try.
on there, and
So,
that will
about
take
my
you
guest
to
tonight.
where we're
I
actually
can't believe she's taking her time
broadcasting.
to spend with
And
us, but we are
your
talking to
comments on
Angie Turner,
YouTube, just like you would have
who
on
is the Director
Facebook.
of Elections and the General Registrar for the City of Alexandria. So, welcome, Angie. We are delighted to have you with us tonight. Like I said, we're trying a new format tonight, and we'll get Angie up on the screen in just a minute. We're working behind the scenes. I know she's there because we were talking earlier.
She's frozen.
Ah, she's frozen, but she'll be here in a minute.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, I just can't see you.
I'm trying to lip read. I think you say I can hear you?
I can hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Unfortunately,
There
I'm
you
having
are.
difficulty hearing you.
I know. Oh, can you hear me now?
Audio seemed to cut out on me. Let me.
I can hear you just fine.
You can hear me just fine?
Yeah, I can.
Lip reading. Yay!
Is it any better?
Would you want me to talk about voters'
Oh.
options for vote?
No, you can hear me now, right?
I can't hear you.
Okay, this is going to be fun tonight.
It was working just a few moments ago.
Okay.
I hear
Well,
you now.
okay, terrific.
Wonderful.
Terrific.
Sorry
Well,
for that.
Angie, thank you so much for being with us. I know that you are still in your office and that you have a lot of late nights going on right now. I just want to, in the interest of fair play, to say that my husband is, Michael Bergen, is a volunteer in the elections office, which is one of the ways that I got your name, which was delightful. But I wanted to say that when he first started working in your office, when he came home and told me the actual process that you all were going through to get out mail-in ballots and the checking and the double checking and the triple checking, I was so impressed. I had no idea that the process was actually that rigorous, which really made me feel so much better given everything that we hear on the news. So I'd really like you to talk a little bit about what that process is, because I think it's very impressive.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to say we have a great team of a great staff and a great team of volunteers who make this process and make those double and triple checks really do work and make them possible. So there's a couple different ways voters can vote, and based upon those are those kind of a couple different double checks and systems we have in place depending on how the voter decides to cast their ballot. Currently, we are in-person absentee voting, and so that is a process by which voters come in to vote in our office. In a little bit, we'll be opening up our satellite locations at Beatley Library. That'll be open for about 9 days, and then Mini Howard and GW, which will also be open for Saturdays only, for 2 Saturdays. And it's trying to assure the voter that we do everything possible to make sure every voter is a registered voter, but also make this process as quick and efficient and safe given the current climate and pandemic going on for all voters. So if voters choose to do it in person, they are verified in an electronic poll book against a list of registered voters. We do keep records of who is checked in, who already has an absentee ballot on file, and so forth. And then they're issued a ballot and cast their ballot in person on the machine, kind of similar to Election Day.
That's an interesting point you just made. I voted in person about 2 weeks ago. I was so excited. But I often wondered about that, whether or not there was something beside my name that said, what if I had asked for an absentee ballot and then decided not to use it, but came and voted in person instead? Would somebody actually know that?
Yes, absolutely. So if you would have gone to the check-in table and said, I'm Virginia Amos, they would have looked you up, looked at your address, all that, and they would have said, oh, we have an absentee record on file for you. And at that point, you kind of have 2 options. One is if you have the ballot with you, you can surrender the ballot. And then we take that ballot from you, and then you get to vote routinely. The other option is in absentee. You can sign something called a statement of voter. It's a sworn statement indicating you applied for but either lost or didn't receive your absentee ballot. And then you can vote routinely too.
Okay. Good to know, because it's always something that's lingered in the back of my mind. So let me ask you this. When did you first get the sense that this year's the work in your office was going to change significantly?
So the Virginia General Assembly did make some changes in their regular session to the processes in which our office go through. I mean, some legal changes with the passage of no excuse absentee voting, and some things along those lines. But that definitely gave us a heads up that things might be changing. And then there was the special session of the General Assembly, which also made additional changes, including the drop box option, the prepaid postage, and the absentee ballot curing in that special session that really kind of give us that, okay, this is going to be a unique year.
And a lot of long nights.
Yes.
So do you talk to other registrars throughout the Commonwealth? Are you all kind of on a first name basis to check in and see how things are going?
Absolutely. So we have an annual conference every year. So that gives us an opportunity to chat with people that you normally wouldn't think of. You mean whether it's Southern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and so forth. But we also have regional conferences and meetings, which of course sometimes are now digital. And then we also have a great Northern Virginia group who I send emails to. It feels like almost every day, asking, "How are you doing this? How's that?" And we're a great team, and I really do appreciate their support.
Well, my impression of going to the office and of voting was that things were really running smoothly. Do you feel that way, and do you get the sense that that's what's going on throughout the Commonwealth?
Every locality has their own unique challenges and are catering to their own unique group. So So I can't speak for everyone in the Commonwealth, but I definitely feel like we're, especially Arlington and some of our Northern Virginia
Hmm.
counterparts, are doing everything we can to ensure efficient, safe, and fair elections.
How many staffers, like paid staffers, do you have in your office? Because I know we were talking about volunteers.
So we're normally a full-time 6.5 staff members, but I was actually recently promoted in July. So we
Nice.
haven't we haven't filled my former position. So we are 5.5 full-time staffers at the moment. So
Okay. All right. But how many volunteers do you have?
many. We are very lucky to have a great core of volunteers who've done many long hours.
They have, and I think you told me you have a waiting list for volunteers now.
Yeah, so our election officers too, we've had a great outpouring of community support. Actually, probably several weeks ago, we hit our capacity for election officers for Election Day. And so at this point, if individuals are interested in assisting, it's great. We appreciate it. But at this point, we have individuals to a backup list. So just in case something were to happen, we have a backup.
That's good. Question something because I know I've talked about this with Michael a little bit. Um, on election day, election officials come in very early in the morning, and they stay for the entire day. And
Yes.
I know that that is a deterrent to some people.
Mhm.
Why is it that the officials can't be changed out, let's say in 4-hour shifts?
So legally, the chiefs and assistant chiefs do have to be there all day to ensure kind of that continuation of operations.
Okay.
But legally, it could be shifts. The electoral board decided against it because it does put, at least currently, that is of course always subject to change. The it puts the if the morning shift person shows up and is ready to rock and roll, and then the evening shift person doesn't show up. You mean
Mm,
it kind of puts an awkward, well, are you going to leave? Can they leave? Will
okay.
it leave the polling place short staffed? It's really, it comes with its own unique challenges. And then it's also managing twice as many people, training twice as many people.
Well, that's true. I hadn't thought about it that way. I
Mhm.
just had really thought about the total number of hours,
Mhm.
and that is a labor of love
Yes.
to go into the polls for that long.
Hmm. And that's why we really do appreciate all of our election officers and volunteers.
So, statistically, what do the numbers, the request for, wait a minute, is there a difference between an absentee ballot and a mail in ballot, or is that just the same thing?
So Virginia, as I said, recently passed no excuse absentee. So that applies for both in person. We started in person no excuse absentee. The kind of colloquialism is early voting,
Okay.
September 18th. We also began mailing out ballots at that same time by mail. And so it's kind of like a by mail or an in person option.
Okay. All right. So, what are the numbers in from 2016 to 2020 and the number of people who have requested mail-in ballots? And let's get the answer to that one first.
So in 45 days for the entire earlier absentee voting period in 2016, we mailed out 7,629 ballots. This year, so far, up through today, we've mailed out
Oh my gosh.
36,336 ballots.
Oh my gosh.
So when I say I appreciate our volunteers, I really appreciate our volunteers. They've been working very hard.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, the terminology that the General Assembly created around no excuse, because I had always interpreted mail-in ballots to be for those people who literally could not get to a polling spot on election day or were going to be out of town, or who were incapacitated. But it's really brilliant, I think, that because there's so many other reasons why somebody can't be there on a specific day.
So prior to July 1st, with the passage of no excuse, there was a list of, I think it was 19 or 21 reasons, including, as you said, being out of town, being away at school, also working and commuting long hours was an option. There was law enforcement option. There was pregnancy option, and the medical disability options. There's a lot of different reasons why someone could, but now, as I said, July 1st, that is no longer a factor, and any voter can choose to vote prior to election day.
And did you see a significant uptick after that day?
At that point, our applications had been increasing pretty substantially. We've gotten buckets of mail.
I think it's great. I love the idea that people are that engaged, and they just want to make sure their vote is counted. So I know it's a lot of work for you all and for your volunteers, but by golly, it feels good.
And it's wonderful. We also, for fun numbers for in person, just to kind of show the difference. As of today, we've had 16,996 voters vote in person absentee. You want to take a stab at what we had in 2016? Total?
2,000?
We had 13,547 in all 45 days. And that included Beatley Library when that opened. So at this point, we haven't opened any of our satellite locations. So we'll be opening satellite locations shortly too. So that number will just continue to increase.
and tell our viewers where those satellite locations are going to be.
So starting October 23rd, which is a Friday, Beatley Library will be open Monday through Saturday, or that Friday through Saturday, up through the deadline to vote in-person absentee, which is October 31st at 5 p.m. And then also brand new for this election, we're going to be opening Minnie Howard and GW Middle School as Saturday-only locations. And those will be open 8 to 5, Saturday, October 24th and 31st.
Great. And so then if you miss those, then you're on to November.
The deadline to vote in-person absentee is October 31st.
Okay.
Halloween.
What is it like in an off year?
What is it like, sorry?
In an off year? When you're, not a presidential election, I'll put it that way.
We're still very busy. We still have lots of election officers to train, still have lots of voters, still have lots of preparations to do. So our staff still remains very busy, but not quite at this volume.
We just don't hear as much about you.
Yep.
So how did you get started? It's actually not a profession I've ever thought about a lot, and we don't hear a lot about you except in presidential elections generally, sometimes not even then. But what pushed you in this direction?
So actually when I moved down here, I was down here for school. I applied to vote at the DMV like a lot of individuals do once I changed my Virginia driver's license, and I checked the box saying I'm interested in being an election officer.
Okay.
And so during that time period, I was like, okay, I could be an election officer. It was the first year was a gubernatorial. I was like, that would be an interesting election to do. But my former supervisor actually called me, and I... telling the story, it became one of those Three Stooges, who's on first kind of conversations. I thought he was calling me about being an election officer. Turns out he was calling about a full-time position in the office they were hiring for prior to the gubernatorial. And so it was this back and forth conversation that I'm happy he didn't hang up on me for. Because he was like, oh, you applied to be an EO. Okay. That makes sense now. But he called me about the full-time position, and I've been here since 2007.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What is the biggest difference for you from when you started till now? And not just in numbers, because I mean that's almost an anomaly.
Well, we've seen voting equipment change. We went to from paper poll books when you check in at the polling place. That those used to be when I started a paper poll book and how you do that process and keep counts and tallies. Now we have electronic poll books. I mean, so there's been voting equipment changes. There's been lots of legislative changes. Even the list of acceptable IDs is varied a few times. So there have been quite a few changes, and then especially this year.
And none of that, I take it, is standard, either across the Commonwealth or certainly across state lines.
The level of legislative changes this year has been unique. Usually there are always a few election changes in the General Assembly.
Right, but what I meant was that there are no standards for voting machines and for processes.
Oh,
Those are all unique to state lines.
So voting equipment is certified by the EIC. I mean, and it does go through certification process and make sure it passes all the state requirements.
But you have different kinds of machines that could be used.
Mm-hmm.
So one state may pick one machine and another state, another one.
The type of scanners you scan your ballot on if you're an Alexandria City resident differ than if you are an Arlington County resident. I mean, we both use different types of voting equipment, but they're both certified by the state.
Okay. I've always found that kind of, I don't know, I don't know if distressing is the right word or not, but I think I've wanted more consistency across the country and how we vote because it's important, and it just seems like there's so many opportunities to mess it up. Those damn hanging chads, I mean, there's always something.
No hanging chads in Virginia.
No hanging chads. Well, we're grateful for that. So you went to George Mason, and did you major in political science?
I did.
You did. Okay.
Political theory and law.
Okay. And were you headed for law school?
I was that year of the governor's race. I was taking a year off to study for my LSATs. When my former supervisor called me, that little flyer on being an election officer was actually my bookmark in my LSAT book. So
That's great.
Haven't gone back to law school.
That's great. Well, we're glad to have you. We have enough lawyers. We don't have we need good election officials.
Yeah.
So what do you see happening in the next week or so for your office?
So I think we'll start, we've had a fair number of voters. We're averaging several hundred voters every day, so in person. As I said earlier, the deadline to request an absentee ballot by mail is the 23rd. So we could still get voters who are applying to vote to have a ballot sent to them via mail. I mean, and I think we'll be quite busy.
Well, I think you all have done a great job of having parking places out front for everybody. And it seems to be moving just as smoothly as possible. And that's not always easy in the midst of, just trying to get people to where they're supposed to be and to do it safely under the circumstances.
Well, thank you very much. We constantly trying to improve the process.
Well, I think you've done a great job, and we so appreciate just you and your volunteers, and the fact that you are working at the behest of the electorate, really, and trying to make this process as really trouble free. And that's what I appreciate. That we want to know that the outcome has gone through a great process. Somebody I used to work for said, if the process is good, then everything else is all right.
Yep, we are here to serve all of the voters of the Alexandria City, make sure that everything's fair, accurate, and filled with integrity.
Thank you. That's most appreciated. Well, I know that you were putting in a lot of late nights at the office, and I don't want to keep you any later than we have to, but I so appreciate your taking the time to come on with us tonight and just be a reassuring face and voice to the citizens of Alexandria that their vote is important and that it will be counted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me here. I want to apologize about the technical problems in the beginning.
Well, they were on both ends, so it's not to worry. And hopefully someone will give you a big bottle of champagne the day after the election or that night, and that you can go home early and partake. So thank you again, everybody. We appreciate your tuning in. We will be off next week. We're actually taking a few days in Nantucket, of all places. I'm very excited. But we will be back the following week, the end of October, and we're going to be talking about a phenomena, at least it is a new phenomena to me. It is the Buy Nothing groups that populate Facebook and the exchange of merchandise, which is just amazing. And we're going to be talking to one of the facilitators in Old Town. So until then, and we see you, please be the good news in someone's life.